Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. I would like to welcome everybody to the lecture of epithelial tissues. The epithelium have some characteristic features. Number one, the cells are close to each other, as we see in this diagram. They also tend to form junctions. The junctions are complex structures that bind two cells together. They also are characterized by the presence of little intercellular material. The cells are touching each other, nothing in between. Number four, they also line surfaces and cavities or form the parenchyma of glands. These are the junctions. Okay. Characteristics of epithelium also include the cell polarity. The polarity means the cell is different at the apex from its base. There are differences between the apex and the base. A polarity, it has a free surface on top, lateral and basal surface. The basal surface usually touch the basement membrane. They rest on a basement membrane, and this is one of the very characteristic features of the epithelium. They do not contain blood vessels in between. There is no blood vessels. They are also mitotically active. They can divide and increase in number. This is an example of simple columnar epithelium. As we see a single line of cells, a row of cells on top of a basement membrane. The basement membrane has a particular structure. It's composed of a basal lamina. The basal lamina has a lamina rara and a lamina densa, and then a reticular lamina below, which is composed of type 3 collagen of reticular fibers. The basement membrane has a basal lamina of collagen type 4 collagen first, and heparan sulfate, fibronectin, and laminin. The reticular lamina below is composed of type 3 collagen of reticular fibers. In this electron micrograph, we see two figures, two images. The basal lamina by transmission electron microscope of human skin. Number A, the basal lamina, BL here, the basal lamina, is shown to have a dense layer with clear layer on each side. The underlying dermis contain anchoring fibrils, arrows, anchoring fibrils, yes, and of collagen, which help to anchor the epithelium to the underlying connective tissue. Hemidesmosomes, H, the hemidesmosomes. Sorry, the hemidesmosome is here, actually. Yes. The hemidesmosome occur at the epithelial connective tissue junction. This at magnification of 54,000. The basal lamina hemidesmosomes here, the basal lamina of hemidesmosomes, and underlying reticular fibers of reticular lamina typically comprise the basement membrane. Yes. Next slide. Functions of the basement membrane. What is the function of basement membrane? Structural support allows nutrients and waste products, filter macromolecules, a zone of differentiation polarization, and a very good role in regeneration. What are the types of epithelium? Epithelium may be covering or surface epithelium that may be further divided into simple and stratified types. Also, it may be glandular epithelium, which is found in the gland. Also, it may be also a neuroepithelium, which is connected to the nervous tissues. The surface or covering epithelium may be simple, stratified, or pseudo-stratified. What are the difference between the three types? The simple is simple in structure, like this simple row of cells, a single row of cells on a basement membrane. This is a simple epithelium. It may be simple squamous, simple cubical, or simple columnar. And this one may be stratified. Also, stratified means composed of strata or several rows on top of each other. This one is stratified cubical epithelium. It may be stratified squamous. If the top layer is squamous, it is called stratified squamous, or stratified cubical like this one, or stratified columnar if the top layer is columnar cells. And finally, the pseudo-stratified type, which looks like several layers, but actually it is a single row of cells. It looks like several rows because of the arrangement of nuclei at different levels. It looks like stratified, but actually it is a single row of cells, and so they call it pseudo-stratified epithelium, pseudo-stratified columnar epithelium like this one. Now let's talk about the simple epithelium. A simple epithelium is composed of a single layer of cells, with each layer extending from the basement membrane to the free surface, plus or minus microvilli on top. A basement membrane is a must-have for each type of epithelium. The epithelium is characterized by the presence, as we mentioned before, by the presence of basement membrane. The basement membrane here below, and the cells are composed of a simple single row of squamous cells, flat cells. And the next one is a simple cubical epithelium or cuboidal epithelium. The basement membrane and cubical cells arranged in a single row. And the last one is a simple columnar epithelium, which is arranged on basement membrane. Now, this diagram represents the simple epithelium. Let's see the basement membrane, a three-dimensional view, the basement membrane, and the simple squamous epithelium. This is a true section that we see under the microscope. We see this is the basement membrane, which is slightly invisible, but the simple epithelium here, the nuclei of the cells are the things that we actually see below the microscope. The stratified epithelium that consists of more than one layer of cells. The types are maybe squamous, flattened cells on top, or cubical, cuboidal cells on top, or columnar if the top layer are columnar cells. The stratified squamous epithelium, in this view, we see several cells on top of each other, and the free surface like that of the skin here. The basement membrane is clearly visible, and in this view we see the actual the true section under the microscope, the basement membrane is curved, wavy in view, and the basal cells are simple columnar cells at the base, and then it becomes cubical or cuboid, and the top layer becomes stratified squamous, the squamous type of cells on top, and maybe it has some keratin on top, and they call it stratified squamous keratinized epithelium, like that of the skin. Stratified cuboidal epithelium. This type is characterized by cuboidal cells on top. These cells have multiple layers. Here, the true section, the basement membrane is slightly invisible, and the top layer is cuboidal. The top layer is composed of cuboidal cells. The stratified columnar epithelium, that the top layer is composed of columnar cells on top. The basement membrane must be present. The first layer, second layer, and third layer, the top layer must have columnar cells to be a stratified columnar epithelium. The surface epithelium is columnar, and this type may be present. We can see this type in the conjunctiva of the eye. The transitional epithelium that appears cuboidal on top layers are cuboidal, and it is a stratified type that's composed of several layers on each other. It is found mainly in the urinary system, in the ureter and the urinary bladder. The transitional epithelium, in this diagram, we see the major features. If you look at the top layer, you find many cells are binucleated, has got two nuclei in the same cell. The binucleated cells are present on top, in the top layer. They are have a curved surface, dome-shaped surface on top. You will find if you look at the basement membrane, you will find it invisible, and this is one of the very characteristic features of the transitional epithelium. Now let's talk about the pseudo-stratified epithelium. Pseudo-stratified. It looks like several rows of cells, but actually it is a single row of cells. It is nothing than a simple epithelium. All the cells reach the basement membrane, but not all of them reach the top. Some cells are tall and then thin and reach the free surface, and some cells are small and basal in position. The nuclei are located at different levels, appear stratified, and the cells are almost always ciliated, associated with goblet cells in the respiratory system. If you see for example, the trachea in the respiratory tract, you'll find the mucosa of the trachea is of this type of epithelium, pseudo-stratified columnar epithelium with goblet cells in between. Tall, yes, tall columnar epithelial cells and small basal cells here. See this small basal cells, and the cilia that are on top, and the goblet cells, which are mucus secreting cells. The goblet cells are mucus secreting cells. In this view, we'll see the pseudo-stratified epithelium composed of a simple row of cells that is crowded on each other, but it is single row of cell, simple row of cell Some cells are short and basal in position that do not reach the top, while others are long and reach the surface, covered with cilia. They are ciliated columnar cells, and we'll find some goblet cells in between of them, like that we see in the respiratory tract. It's called the respiratory epithelium. Now let's classify the glandular epithelium. Number one, let's classify according to the number of cells found in the gland. It is either unicellular, like goblet cells, or multicellular, most of them are multicellular. According to the structure of the gland, either simple gland or branched. Now, according to the mode of secretion, how the secretion comes out from the gland, by a duct in the exocrine gland, or directly released to the blood in endocrine glands. According to the type of secretion, if the secretion is watery, looks like water, it's called serous, or mucus, which is somewhat viscid, it's called the mucus gland, etc. Or the cellular changes that occur in the gland after secretion. Sometimes the glands are merocrine, or apocrine, or holocrine, as we'll see later. This is the goblet cell, which is found in many types of epithelium in the respiratory tract, as we just mentioned, or in the epithelium lining the mucosa of the intestines. In this diagram, we'll see the different types of multicellular exocrine glands. This one is simple straight tubular gland, like the glands of the stomach and colon. And this one is simple branched tubular gland, like the lower portion of the stomach. And this one is simple but coiled, like those of the lower portion of the stomach and the small intestine, and also the sweat glands. And the simple acinar. The simple acinar means that has acini. Acinus is the single is acinus, the plural is acini, which are spherical units of secretion. The spherical units of secretion that are found in the glands. This one is called simple acinar gland, like the sebaceous glands of the skin. And this one is simple branched acinar, like the glands of the sebaceous glands of the skin. And this one is compound tubular, like the mucous glands of the duodenum. And this one is compound acinar, like the mammary gland, has acini but compound. Many of them are bound together, like the mammary gland. And this one is compound tubulo-acinar, like those of the pancreas, exocrine pancreas, of course. The exocrine glands may be classified according to the events that happen after secretion. If the gland remains the same, they are called merocrine. They release their vesicles to the outside of the cells, and they remain intact. They call it merocrine. If the top of the gland is broken and the secretion is released, then it is called apocrine glands. The pinched off portion of the cell during secretion. This happens in the apocrine gland, like the mammary gland. And in this one, we see the dying cell, that cell die and release all the secretions out of the cell, like the holocrine. It is called holocrine gland, like the sebaceous glands. This is sebaceous gland of the skin. The epithelial mitosis is a special feature of epithelium. Epithelium have the ability to undergo mitosis and replace the damaged cells. It is continuously dividing cells. They are undifferentiated. The undifferentiated cells or the stem cells continuously divide and produce new cells. Now let's talk about the cell connections, the compound structures that bind two cells of the epithelium together. The function of this connection, they bind cells together, they form a permeability layer, they form intercellular communication channels. The types of these connections, like desmosomes or tight junctions or gap junctions. We'll explore them now. Let's see the tight junctions. In the tight junctions, the two cell membranes looks like if the two cell membranes are fusing together. They call it tight junctions, but actually they are not fusing. They looks like if they are fusing. In this type of junction here, we see spots or kisses between two cells that fuse the two membranes together. And now the other type is desmosome. In this plate, the desmosome is found in the epithelial cells, and it's composed of two major bodies or plaques. The plaques are on the opposite sides of the cell and get connected with the intermediate filaments. The intermediate filaments bind the two plaques together, forming a strong connection between the two cells. The other type of junction is the gap junction. In the gap junction, there is physical or true connection between the two cells. The two cells are connected with gap junction. The gap junction is also called connexon. That is formed of connexins, the proteins that they form a physical channel between two adjacent cells that allows passage of molecules between two cytoplasms. Now, what are the functions of epithelium? The epithelium have many functions, actually, mainly protection that guard against wear and tear, the keratin on the skin, and the mucus that prevent drying on other mucous membranes like the stomach, like the intestine. It also performs the absorption. It absorbs things like that of the intestine. It also performs secretion, like all glandular epithelia. It secretes hormones or digestive enzymes or mucus. The epithelium also has some sensory functions in the skin, particularly. Also acts like a barrier that guard against cold, and chemical barrier as well in the skin. It's also have some surface. It can perform surface transport via cilia on the cell surface. It also permits passage of substance across them. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.